Welcome to the Parkinson's Project podcast. The Parkinson's Project seeks to erase the stigma associated with Parkinson's disease while empowering and inspiring those dealing with the affliction to live life to the fullest. The Parkinson's Project aspires to build an engaged, supportive community while examining the journey of living with Parkinson's disease through a positive, empowering perspective. Here is your host of the Parkinson's Project podcast, Tim McNiff.
Hi again, everybody. I am Tim McNiff, and welcome to the Parkinson's Project podcast. This is episode 20, and we have just concluded our first year here at the Parkinson's Project podcast. So I'm dropping the whole explainer I usually do at the beginning, figuring you either heard it all on the recorded introduction or that you know us by now, who we are and what we are all about. And what we really are all about is going into the Parkinson's community and reaching out to the people who are working every day on the front lines to find a cure, to help others live their best life, or just create a better path for themselves, or perhaps for a loved one. Now, we try to keep our episodes to about 20 to 30 minutes in length, but if we do have a conversation we find to be so compelling, we need to extend it over that. We reserve the right to cut the episode in half and make 2 episodes in order to bring beneficial content to all you who engage with us, with an ultimate goal of putting PD out of business and ourselves out of business because there's no longer a need to talk about it. And with that, it is my great pleasure to welcome to the Parkinson's Project podcast, Polly Dawkins, Executive Director of the Davis Phinney Foundation. Polly, welcome.
Thank you so much, Tim, and thank you for having me on the Parkinson's Project podcast.
This is fantastic. Like me, Polly does not have PD, but she has been down in the trenches for almost a dozen years, working on behalf of those who do and their loved ones. And so we asked her to come join us to tell us more about the Davis Phinney Foundation. But before we get into all that, the miraculous part of this entire thing is I always do a pre-phone call, introductory phone call, to try to give everyone kind of a feel for myself and what the show's all about. And we talk, and so I get a better understanding of what they want to do. And we talked for almost an hour, and it was a compelling discussion, and I really enjoyed it. And we're about to say goodbye when Polly drops the bomb where she says, actually, I'm from Minnesota. What? So, yeah, I got to get the background on that, because in the news business, we would say you buried the lead.
Yes. And in fact, 31 years ago today, I was getting married in Minnesota.
Oh, my God.
So, yeah, I was at the the Landmark Center, I think it's called, down in St. Paul, having a wedding. So yes, I grew up in St. Paul and moved away to go to college, and I have not lived in the Twin Cities since then, but I go back all the time to visit my parents and my family.
I was family. You're going to come next month.
Yeah, I'll be there next month. Spent summers up in northern Minnesota as a camper. Came back as a camp counselor one year. So yes, it's near and dear to my heart is Minnesota.
And you ended up in the second most beautiful place, Boulder, Colorado.
It's pretty beautiful here. I feel very fortunate.
As you should. No, we
fewer mosquitoes here.
Well, that is for sure, right? That is for absolute sure. Before we get into how you got involved at Davis Phinney, can we start by having you give us a little background into the man behind the name?
Absolutely. Davis Phinney, I didn't know when I started working at the foundation. I didn't know his history, and I've come to understand his background really well. Davis was a professional cyclist, and he still holds the title of the winningest American cyclist in history. He has, I think, 327 wins to his name. Yeah, and he was an Olympian, a Tour de France stage winner, and at the age of 40 in 2000, Davis was finally diagnosed with Parkinson's. And Tim, as you know through this work, when I say finally diagnosed with Parkinson's, it was quite a long journey to get that diagnosis.
Sure.
And as a young man with young children at home, and a really vibrant career. At the time, he had retired from cycling, professional cycling, and he was a sports broadcaster at the time, a sportscaster. And so it really changed his trajectory of what his career and what his life was going to look like. The Parkinson's diagnosis really changed what he was going to do with his future. And about 4 years after his diagnosis, Davis learned that exercise and physical activity and overall well-being and taking care of himself as he did as an athlete made him feel better. And nobody, Tim, at the time, nobody in 2000 or 2004 was talking about alternative ways to feel better with Parkinson's and the things you could do. In fact, he was told, essentially, get your affairs in order, quiet your life down. You got Parkinson's, take this medicine. And he knew that from his own experience, his own lived experience, that wasn't the approach that was going to work for him or made him feel good. So in 2004, he said, all right, didn't have any desire to start a nonprofit organization, but he was approached by somebody who said, I'd like to start a nonprofit and put your name to it. And he said, all right, I'll do that. As long as the mission of the organization is to help people with Parkinson's live well today. That is where I want to spend the rest of my career, my next career. And we're just about to enter our 20th year as an organization. And that's all we do. We help people with Parkinson's live well today.
And it's kind of the natural question. I think if people were out there would be asking the same question. How is he doing on his journey?
He's doing really well. He's had Parkinson's for 23 years now. And
diagnosed.
22, yeah. And he's doing really well. He continues to be incredibly active physically, and that helps him. But as he's learned, and it's interesting, Tim, our organization has grown alongside his Parkinson's. So as he's learned more and we've learned more, we've become better at this topic of quality of life, as has he. So no longer is it just exercise for him. It's a myriad of things that are involved in his overall well-being, which means he's got to sleep well. He's got to eat well. He meditates, he exercises, he takes his medication. He's got deep brain stimulation, which he's had since 2008. All of those things contribute to how well Davis is doing. And that's not to say that he hasn't experienced decline, because everybody with Parkinson's experiences decline, but the slope of that decline is really quite gradual.
It not only sets an example, perhaps, for others, but he's maybe served as a test case or a marker because of his notoriety. I would imagine he gets approached by a lot of people who have a lot of, options for him. Yes,
he does. And in fact, one of those options is an electric pedal assist bike, an e-bike. And, you don't think of that as a typical assistive device or an approach to your Parkinson's overall care. But for him, that has been transformational and has allowed him to do something he, loves and regain the love of cycling, because he can now, he's been on an e-bike for, I would say, at least 5 years. And it's so great, and it opens up, the joy of being out in the mountains and being with friends and being able to ride with people. And so, what we've learned is they're all different ways that you can live well with Parkinson's. And what works today may not work tomorrow, but focus on today and really live in the moment and look at all of the different things and approaches that people take and figure out what works best for you. What we know doesn't work is sitting around and waiting.
Yeah, no, for sure. So we mentioned earlier, the foundation is headquartered in Boulder. Mm-hmm. There are a lot of great organizations out there doing groundbreaking work, trying to put an end to this scourge. In your experience, What makes Davis Phinney special or perhaps unique?
I think it's the absolute discipline of our focus. We are entirely focused on living well with Parkinson's, and that makes us unique. We also are small enough that we can be incredibly responsive to our constituents. Tim, today we reach, I think by the end of the year, we'll reach well over 1.2 million people with our work for this year alone. And people will call us and write to us and ask us for ideas and advice. And they are constantly amazed that we answer our phone, we answer our emails, we make connections, and we are very committed to helping individuals and their care teams, their families. And I think that responsiveness, that sort of boutique approach to living well with Parkinson's makes us unique. And we hear that every day from people.
What's really been interesting having this interaction and watching you as you answer these questions is you can't keep the smile off your face when you talk about Davis Phinney. I mean, that to me is sincere. It
is. I love this work. I love this community. Tim, when you start your career, you don't know ultimately. I mean, I didn't grow up saying I want to be a fireman, firefighter, or a ballerina, or the typical careers. I knew I wanted to be eventually in business. I didn't realize that this was going to be the thing that brought me such completeness and such joy and such impact and purpose. And I can see the impact of our work every day. And it's really fun. I mean, Parkinson's is no fun, don't get me wrong, but this work is really fun. I can't tell you what it feels like to get a call from somebody or who says, "You saved my life." That gives me goosebumps every day. Do I have time for a quick little story?
Absolutely, please.
So we got an email in June from a man who said, I was diagnosed with Parkinson's at 30. I am now 47, and I thought my life was over. And I found the Davis Phinney Foundation, and I got back into cycling, and I started taking care of myself. And I have decided I am going to go to Iowa. I'm going to fly to Iowa and ride the registered Great Ride Across Iowa, RAGBRAI. And I want to meet Davis. May I do that? And that just came into our contact email, and it was forwarded to me. And I looked at it, and I looked at his name, and I looked him up, and he's from Italy. And I thought, wow, that's pretty impactful. Well, turns out I was going to Italy in 2 weeks' time. And so I wrote back to him and I said, "Simone, I won't be at RAGBRAI. Davis won't be at RAGBRAI this year, but I happen to be going to Italy this summer. Is there any chance we could ride together? We could get together?" And he drove the 2.5 hours to where I was. I was there with Dr. Jay Alberts, who is a Parkinson's researcher. He's the person who really discovered the connection between improved symptoms and cycling and Parkinson's, that there's a connection. And we funded that research, which has found that cycling is neuroprotective, which is amazing. So long story short, Dr. Jay Alberts and I met Simone. He speaks English, very, very limited English. But what he was able to say to me when we were having dinner together, he said, "Polly," and he pointed at the logo. I had a Davis Phinney Foundation logo on my sweater that I was wearing. And he pointed to that and he said, "Davis Phinney Foundation saved my life." And I was like, I thought, here I am in the beautiful, taking a vacation in the beautiful Dolomites in Italy, riding my bike. It can't get better. And then it did.
It did.
And that isn't a one-off. And that's why I smile. This is great work that we get to do.
Well, you radiate it. It's really it's compelling. You said something during our previous conversation that I wrote down, and I've been waiting to ask you about this because I've given it quite a bit of thought. You said, and I quote, Parkinson's well-being is essential to the community.
Mhm.
What do you mean by that?
Yeah, and that's we have that's part of our vision, where we envision a world where Parkinson's well-being is essential to the health of the community, and where everybody with Parkinson's, all people with Parkinson's, have access to the tools and resources and information they need to live well. And Tim, the way I think of that is, when we can get to a place where our communities are surrounding our people with Parkinson's and they have the resources they need, the overall health of the community will be better, because we are thinking about all parts of well-being, including those individuals who are differently abled. So if we have walking paths, if we have access to medications, if we have access to care, if we have access to all of the things a person with Parkinson's needs to live well, then the overall community will be healthier and better.
You mentioned a couple minutes ago the impact, the reach of Davis Phinney. And as we said earlier, located in Boulder, Colorado.
Mm-hmm.
But as you talk about this, I can picture somebody saying, oh, well, I live in Louisville, or I live in Tampa, or I live in Minneapolis,
Mm-hmm.
and they're not here.
Yeah.
That's too bad. Well, it's really not, because Davis Phinney has a rather unique program of ambassadors located throughout the country. And it is because of one of those ambassadors, a gentleman by the name of Mike Fanning,
Yeah.
who reached out to me and said, I love the podcast. I love what you guys are doing. Can I make some connections? And I said, no. And of course I didn't say no. I'm like, yeah, absolutely. Thank you for the kind words. And that would be great. And you were one of the people that he put out there. And then I come to find out, I'm going to an event here in the Twin Cities in September, where Mike's one of the people that's going to be honored for his work in the community. And he is one of your ambassadors. Tell us about this Davis Phinney Ambassador Program.
Yeah, we started that in 2015, and with about 15 individuals who are living with Parkinson's around the US. And what we envisioned is that we knew, just as you've pointed out very astutely, Tim, that we are located in Colorado, in Boulder, Colorado. And at the time in 2015, we probably had 8 or 9 staff members. We knew we couldn't be everywhere. We knew that our brand and our voice was trusted with a certain group of individuals, but we can't get into clinics. We can't be everywhere. We can't be a part of a conversation when somebody's newly diagnosed. So we envisioned a way that individuals could become grassroots community leaders, and our commitment to those individuals could be providing skills and training and resources so they could go into their communities and do grassroots community work, which for every ambassador of ours, and today that program has grown to 85 individuals around the US and Canada, and every single ambassador of ours does this work slightly differently and does it the way they want to do it. All of these individuals are volunteers. And so we work with them to give them the tools, the skills, the training they need to express volunteerism in the Parkinson's community the way they want. So some are going out and speaking or tabling at events. Some are going into clinics and meeting with clinicians. Some are going to Capitol Hill and advocating and lobbying. Some are meeting and leading support groups. It really depends on the individual and how they want to express their volunteerism. And some are exercise class leaders. Not everybody who's an ambassador has Parkinson's. I would say 85 or 90% of them are, our ambassadors are, but the others are care partners or allied health professionals or exercise professionals who are advocating for this idea that quality of life matters in the Parkinson's community.
Is it okay if I go off script for just a minute?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I've got a couple questions left, and I'm wondering, as we talk about this, you've been there for 11, 12 years, and you've done so much. What's the one thing that's remained elusive? What's the one thing that I guess would be your biggest frustration, or the biggest thing you have not been able to address, or that's still out there? You're like, we have to do that, or I have to do that.
Yeah. It's really hard to look at our work and know that we're reaching over 1 million people a year with our work, and to know that there are still so many people who don't have access to those resources for many, many reasons, whether it's a language barrier, it's an economic barrier, it's a regional versus or rural versus urban barrier. And we know that Parkinson's doesn't discriminate. We know that there are slightly more men than women that get Parkinson's. But other than that, Parkinson's doesn't discriminate. Yet those who are receiving access to resources and care are disproportionately look one way, they're more affluent, they're more educated. And that we can't figure that out. And that's not just an issue that the Davis-Finney Foundation faces. That's an issue with all of Parkinson's, that it isn't an older white man's disease. And we can't figure out how to get to people who are not getting the care.
That's really interesting. And I appreciate your perspective on that. So we have spent here at the Parkinson's Project podcast, and as I've said, people are going to gag themselves when I say this again. When I went into this a year ago, I knew absolutely nothing other than Michael J. Fox, just nothing about Parkinson's. But that's where, so we've spent a year just trying to say, this is who we are. This is what we're trying to do. How can we help? And so the podcast is a way to try to make people aware of what's out there and to try to connect people. Yeah. And it's been a very empowering, enjoyable thing for me to do. That's where I get the goosebumps when I hear the stories. And when we're done, I will feel very good about, what I've accomplished before 10 a.m. here in Minneapolis time. That said, and I'm just talking right now, I think our focus has to be on how do we reach people like me a year ago? How do we involve them in this to make them understand the situation, and that it doesn't require much on their behalf to make an incredible impact for so many people for an issue that really does impact them, even though they have not been made aware of it because of all the other distractions we have in this planet.
Yeah. And using your voice and the platform you have and the audience you have makes a huge difference, Tim. If you're reaching somebody who has never experienced Parkinson's before, it puts a little nugget in their head to think, oh, and then they will know somebody with Parkinson's eventually. We all do.
Or they probably witnessed somebody who had it and had a completely different take on what they thought they were looking at. Because I didn't realize it. People kept talking about the stigma and the shame and all this. I go, what stigma? What shame? You didn't do anything wrong. You didn't, do something that brought this on you. You just were unlucky. But now I've heard the stories, and I'm like, ugh. Yeah, that's hard. How would you deal with that? And if I saw that person having, shaking or tremors or couldn't get out a sentence, what would I think? And so it really is. There's a whole sort of enlightening that we have to pull together and row in the same direction and really make happen.
Yeah, and I think that goes right back to one of the first questions you asked me about the well-being of a person with Parkinson's affecting the well-being of the community.
Essential to the community.
Yeah. If we as community members can recognize and be kinder and more patient and more generous with our responses to our friends with Parkinson's that we know and see in the community and understand, and then make it easier for our Parkinson's community to coexist and thrive, that we've made a difference.
The goal of this podcast, Polly, is to inspire people. But we always want to have a functional aspect to it. a call to action. If you could have people take one action as a result of this conversation on this platform, what might that be?
If you are living with Parkinson's and you're listening to this podcast, I would encourage you to reach out to the Davis Phinney Foundation and avail yourself of resources and connect yourself with one of our ambassadors. Look at some of our podcasts, our videos, our webinars, our books, and know that it is possible to feel better today than you did yesterday. If you are not living with Parkinson's and you're listening to this, perhaps you could reach out to somebody that you know with Parkinson's and offer an idea, assistance, something that you could do to help them improve their quality of life.
Maybe just a simple question. How can I help? Yeah.
Say it again, Tim.
How can I help?
This.
It's just, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, let's close with you, Polly, and the Davis Phinney Foundation. If you could wave a magic wand, and I'm guessing if you could, you'd just cure the damn disease. But let's just say that's not an option. And you could make one thing happen that would make your organization more effective and benefit more people. What would that be? How do you improve Davis Phinney?
Have more people know about us and about our work. Yeah, I would like that upon diagnosis, if a person is able to get that diagnosis, upon diagnosis, they think, oh, I know I should reach out to the Davis Phinney Foundation. They have everything I need completely free to help me live well with Parkinson's.
And if they're not in Boulder, Colorado, there's help closer than they think.
Yeah, we are everywhere, and we can connect you.
Polly Dawkins is the executive director at the Davis Phinney Foundation. Polly, I've gotten a glimpse at your life just through our communications the past couple of weeks, and I know that you are extremely busy. So thank you. Thank you for carving out the time to fit us in. And mostly thank you for the work that you're doing on behalf of the people out there who have PD and your continuing work to help them navigate their journey. If someone wanted to reach out to you directly, is that an option? And
Absolutely.
if so, what would be the best way for them to do that?
Email is a great way. You may email me with my first initial and last name, P. Dawkins at DPF for DavisPhinneyFoundation.org, or you could call. And our phone number here is area code 303-733-3340. And just ask for me.
As you said earlier, you actually answer those messages and emails. So fabulous. Happy anniversary. And I look forward to meeting you in person next month.
Wonderful. Thank you, Tim. And thanks for doing this work. It's truly important.
Did you enjoy the experience, Polly?
I did. Thank you.
Because if you didn't, whose fault would it be?
Both of ours.
You're being too kind. All right. Stick around. I'm going to track you down in just a second, okay?
All right. Thanks, Tim.
All right. The Parkinson's Project seeks to be a place where you can come for a range of information about PD and to find support for yourself or perhaps for a loved one. We encourage you to check us out on Facebook at the Parkinson's Project, and you can find the Parkinson's Project podcast wherever you're going to find your favorite podcasts. Check us out and please rate us so we can continue to grow and continue to give support in an ongoing effort to eradicate this affliction and put ourselves, quite frankly, out of business. This has been the Parkinson's Project podcast for executive producer Pat Forcia. I'm Tim McNiff. I want to thank you for joining us. I want to thank you for following us. I look forward to meeting and working with all of you as we seek to build a loving, supportive, and empowering community through all aspects of the Parkinson's Project. Be well, everybody.
Thank you for engaging with the Parkinson's Project podcast. Be sure to look for more content on the Parkinson's Project Facebook page, and we'll see you right here on the next edition of the Parkinson's Project podcast.